Cold mist drifts over the ruins of a forest in Thuringia, Germany. Beneath the roots and broken stone, a team of engineers unearths a rusted hatch. Its steel warped, its bolts fused shut since 1945. The smell of iron and damp earth fills the air as they force it open. A stale gust escapes, carrying the silence of a war that never truly ended. Inside lies a bunker, sealed, forgotten, untouched. On its walls, faded stencils spell one phrase: Object 1288. What began as a simple construction survey is about to rewrite everything we thought we knew about the final days of the Reich. Chapter 1. Operation Ashfall, the sealed bunker of Thuringia. In the closing months of World War II, Europe was a continent in ruins. Cities burned beneath endless skies of smoke. Rail lines were shattered, rivers choked with debris, and the ground itself seemed exhausted by years of war. Yet even as the Third Reich collapsed, a strange silence spread through the forests of central Germany. An absence of movement, of retreating soldiers or surrendering officers. Something had gone underground. In Thuringia, the heart of Germany, local villagers spoke in whispers about men who arrived at night. Engineers in black uniforms, convoys of trucks moving under tarps, and a sealed perimeter guarded by SS officers. Officially, it was a mining project, a facility meant to store munitions and supplies away from Allied bombers. Unofficially, it was known only by its code, Operation Ashfall. The Reich's leadership was desperate. Allied forces advanced from the west, the Red Army from the east. Berlin was already a lost city, but in the chaos of retreat, a handful of senior officers, including figures from the Waffen-SS research divisions, redirected remaining resources to hidden sites across Germany. These were no longer factories or training grounds. They were vaults, places to bury knowledge, technology, and experiments that could not be allowed to fall into enemy hands. For the people who lived nearby, life in early 1945 was a rhythm of fear and waiting. Air raid sirens, rations, the hollow sound of boots on cobblestones. They saw little of the war's front lines, but they heard the earth rumble with the passage of armored columns and distant artillery. Children were told to stay away from the forest. Soldiers who disobeyed orders vanished without trace. And at night, faint mechanical hums drifted through the trees, machinery operating somewhere beneath their feet. Across Europe, both Allied and Axis powers were racing toward a different kind of victory. One not fought with soldiers, but with science. The atomic age had begun in theory, though few yet understood it. German physicists, many working under duress, struggled to keep up with dwindling resources. Yet hidden in their notes were fragments of extraordinary research. Heavy water refinement, neutron reflectors, high-voltage isotope experiments, the kind of work that might change the balance of power if it could only be finished. Operation Ashfall was born from that desperation. The plan was simple in design but terrifying in intent. Consolidate Germany's most advanced weapons research into one underground network, a vault that could survive total defeat. It was said to involve nuclear materials, chemical innovations, and advanced propulsion designs. But no paper trail survived. The official records end abruptly in March 1945, when a Reichspostschutz convoy vanished on its way to Thuringia. Then silence. No surrender, no destruction order, only the forest, swallowing everything. When American troops reached the area weeks later, they found nothing but empty tunnels and collapsed shafts. Whatever had been built there was gone, sealed or buried by retreating forces. The Allies moved on, and the site disappeared into the folds of post-war geography, marked only as a disused quarry on Soviet occupation maps. For decades, the legend of the Thuringian Vault lingered in local folklore. Some said it was a chemical dump. Others claimed it was an unfinished refuge for high-ranking Nazis. Historians dismissed it as rumor. But as the Cold War began, the region became part of East Germany, sealed once more, this time by an iron curtain of its own. Soviet engineers arrived briefly in the 1950s, surveying old mines. Then inexplicably, they left, leaving behind concrete slabs and a series of fenced-off zones that never appeared on public maps. What they found, or failed to find, would remain unknown for nearly 80 years. And so, beneath the soil of Thuringia, Operation Ashfall slept. Its walls held whatever secrets the Reich had entombed there, preserved by darkness and neglect. The world above rebuilt itself, forgetting. But history, like pressure, does not fade. It waits, quietly, patiently, for the moment it can break through the surface once more. Chapter 2: The Race Beneath the Ashes. By the start of 1944, the Reich's defeat was no longer a question of if, but when. Yet within its collapsing structure, a different kind of battle had begun. One fought in laboratories, conference rooms, and secret correspondence. The Allies called it the Technological War. Inside the Third Reich, it was whispered among scientists as Die letzte Hoffnung, the last hope. Albert Speer's Ministry of Armaments pushed the nation's research sector to its breaking point. Factories relocated underground, laboratories hidden inside mountain ranges, entire workforces drafted into secret projects. Some were known: V-2 rockets, jet aircraft, radar, but others existed only as codenames buried in reports. Project Uranverein, Sonnengeflecht, Ashfall. Projects so compartmentalized that even within the SS, only a few officers held full clearance. Their mission was singular: to find something, anything, that could reverse the war's tide. Among the scientists working in those final years were men like Kurt Diebner, Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker, and others who had glimpsed the potential of atomic energy. The idea of splitting the atom had already become a weapon in theory, yet Germany lacked both the resources and unified command to complete it. Still, deep within Thuringia, a select team received orders to construct a sealed research chamber, one capable of containing volatile experiments. It was to be self-sufficient, powered by underground turbines and isolated from civilian detection. The project's oversight came directly from the SS's Amt 6, the intelligence branch responsible for scientific espionage. The men who worked there were sworn to silence. Their families received letters stamped with false assignments. In journals recovered decades later, a technician described a heat that comes from nowhere, a silence so heavy it felt like the air itself was watching. He mentioned blueprints for something he did not understand: a reactor core composed of alternating layers of uranium metal and graphite. To him, it was a machine that breathes, but not all were loyal. By late 1944, internal reports revealed growing dissent among the staff. Some feared they were building a weapon that would consume them all. Others simply wanted the war to end. One entry, unsigned, written in shorthand, speaks of evacuation orders and self-destruct protocols. Whether those were ever enacted remains uncertain. Meanwhile, outside the Reich, the Allies were converging. British and American intelligence units tracked shipments of heavy water and specialized equipment moving towards central Germany. The Manhattan Project's security branch, concerned about Nazi progress, dispatched operatives under Operation Alsos to intercept and seize scientific personnel. They were told to prioritize materials of atomic or energetic significance. Their orders included Thuringia, but by the time they arrived, the tunnels were already sealed. The Soviet Union, too, was listening. NKVD reports from January 1945 describe unusual geological activity and engineer detachments working day and night. Stalin himself, deeply suspicious of Western intentions, ordered his own teams to secure every scientific facility west of the Elbe before American forces could reach them. The race beneath the ashes had begun, not just for land, but for knowledge. Those who survived the war's end spoke little of what they saw. Some vanished into captured territory. Others were quietly absorbed into Allied research programs. By 1947, dozens of German scientists had been relocated to the United States under Operation Paperclip, their expertise repurposed for the coming Cold War. Their new employers asked no questions about what they'd left behind. But fragments surfaced. A photograph here, a mislabeled blueprint there, a Soviet intelligence memo referencing experiments involving atmospheric ionization. Even a US Army report, heavily redacted, noting a sealed structure in Forest Sector 34B, Thuringia region. Possible high-energy site. All of it forgotten as the decades passed, buried under the larger narrative of reconstruction and rivalry. And yet, every so often, something stirred. A hunter's story of strange metal protruding from the ground. A local legend of the bunker that hums. Government workers sent to survey soil contamination who never returned. always followed by silence, always covered by bureaucracy. In truth, the end of the war had not ended anything. It had only shifted the battlefield, from trenches and tanks to laboratories and files to secrecy and denial. The men who had buried Operation Ashfall had not simply hidden weapons, they had hidden history itself. As the Cold War deepened, both superpowers quietly hunted for what Germany had left behind. The Americans called it legacy recovery. The Soviets called it последствия, the consequences. Both sides were searching for ghosts in the ground, each afraid that the other might find them first. What they uncovered, or perhaps chose not to reveal, remains uncertain to this day. But the truth is patient. Metal corrodes, paper decays, memories fade. Yet the Earth remembers, and sometimes it decides to tell its story. Chapter 3. Beneath the Iron Forest. The excavation began at dawn on a cold October morning. The forest was silent, wrapped in mist that clung to the treetops like smoke. Dr. Anna Weiss, a German geologist contracted for regional survey work, stood beside a row of drilling rigs, her breath fogging in the air. She had expected nothing more than mineral readings and groundwater samples. But by mid-afternoon, the sensors began picking up echoes, a hollow resonance far deeper than natural rock should allow. Something metallic, something built. The first borehole collapsed at 40 meters. The second struck reinforced concrete. At 16:42 hours, her team's camera probe dropped through a narrow breach, revealing a chamber beneath the soil, its walls intact, its surfaces coated with rust and condensation. A ladder descended into darkness. Faint markings appeared near the base of the frame, the eagle insignia of the Third Reich. Above it, barely visible through grime, were two words: Object 1288. From that moment, the site ceased to be a civilian operation. Within 48 hours, federal police arrived. The perimeter was sealed. Mobile command units rolled in under floodlights. Unmarked vans carried men and women with clipboards and no insignia. The forest became a maze of tarps and generators, humming through the night. On the third day, entry was authorized. Cameras followed the descent as Dr. Weiss and two engineers unbolted the hatch, the metal shrieking in protest. A gust of stale air burst upward, heavy with the scent of oil and decay. Their headlamps caught on frost and fragments of glass. Inside, the walls were lined with pipes and gauges, their faces still legible beneath a thin layer of dust. Everything was frozen in time, as if the operators had stepped out for a moment and never returned. Then came the silence, the kind that presses against your chest. They advanced through narrow corridors, cables snaking across the floor, leading to sealed rooms marked Versuchsbereich, experimental sector. The deeper they went, the colder it grew. A heavy door bore a stencil, Reichspostschutz, Geheimhaltungsklasse 4. It took nearly an hour to cut through. Beyond it, they found a chamber large enough to hold a train car, its ceiling blackened by soot. In the center stood a cylindrical structure, fractured, corroded, but unmistakably engineered for containment. Radiation meters clicked in nervous rhythm. It wasn't a weapons cache. It was a reactor bay. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific and intelligence communities. If genuine, it suggested that Nazi Germany had come closer to a functional nuclear device than historians had believed. But as investigators probed deeper, inconsistencies emerged. The machinery bore modifications typical of early Soviet engineering, welded joints and Cyrillic serial numbers that couldn't have existed in 1945. Someone had returned to this place after the war. Files recovered from a sealed drawer confirmed it. Blueprints annotated in both German and Russian, dated 1947. The site had been reopened, studied, and then resealed under Soviet control. Operation Ashfall had not ended with the Third Reich. It had been inherited by the next regime, and the evidence of that cooperation, or exploitation, had been buried beneath layers of Cold War secrecy. By the end of the first week, excavation crews uncovered a secondary corridor leading to a communications room. Old reels of magnetic tape lay scattered across the floor. Analysts restored one fragment, the faint hum of generators. Then voices, male, German accented, discussing calibration. A command, then static. Another recording followed, this time in Russian. It mentioned ion testing and containment breach. Whatever they were doing, it had gone wrong. The temperature dropped sharply in the deeper tunnels. Ice crystals formed on cables. The team's instruments began failing, batteries drained by interference. One by one, the lights flickered out. replaced by the dim glow of backup lanterns. For the first time, the engineers requested withdrawal, but higher authorities, now fully aware of what had been found, ordered continued access. What lay within Object 1288 was no longer an archaeological matter, it was a matter of state. As they reached the lowest chamber, the air thickened with dust and metallic taste. Their boots sank into a fine grey powder. Here, the walls bore handprints, smeared and blackened. Scrawled beside them in chalk were equations, chemical notations, and fragments of a sentence. Nicht öffnen, bis. The rest was erased. In the far corner, beneath a collapsed pipe, they found the remains of 2 individuals. Their uniforms long decayed, insignia unrecognizable. Nearby, a clipboard, miraculously intact, displayed a final entry dated 10th April 1945. It read simply, Phase 4 initiated. Evacuation incomplete. The bunker was evacuated that same night. Security sealed the hatch again, this time with reinforced welds. Official reports listed the site as unstable and contaminated, but photographs and data quietly transferred to intelligence archives suggested otherwise. A near-complete reactor prototype, hybrid in design, capable of limited fission reaction, and surrounding it, traces of isotopes matching those used in early Soviet testing during the late 1940s. Had the Soviets finished what the Germans began, or had they buried it because they could not control it? Weeks later, Dr. Weiss received a letter marked confidential. It thanked her for her service, reminded her of the Non-Disclosure Act she had signed, and offered immediate reassignment abroad. She never returned to Thuringia. The forest was fenced off, declared a wildlife reserve. Satellite imagery showed nothing but trees, but locals still speak of that winter, of trucks that came at night, of the humming that returned for weeks after the scientists left, and of a faint blue glow deep within the earth, visible only before dawn, when the mist is low and the forest holds its breath. Chapter 4: The Silence After Discovery. The excavation ended, but the story refused to stay buried. Months after the Thuringia site was sealed, fragments of information began to surface. A photograph here, a report there, passed through encrypted channels or leaked by anonymous sources. Each piece seemed insignificant on its own, but together, they formed a mosaic of unsettling truth. The past had not only been hidden, it had been actively erased. Dr. Anna Weiss left Germany quietly, taking a post in Norway under a research exchange program. In her final interview before disappearing from public record, she spoke only once about what she'd seen. Her words were simple, almost whispered. It wasn't abandoned, it was finished. After that, no trace of her appears again. Not in academic rosters, not in travel records, not even in personnel databases. Her disappearance became another layer of the mystery, another name struck from history. Meanwhile, inside the Bundesarchiv in Koblenz, archivists noticed a pattern. Files related to post-war Soviet-German reconstruction, particularly those concerning Thuringia, began disappearing from catalogues. Access logs were wiped, requests for retrieval were denied. When one historian attempted to appeal through the Ministry of Culture, he was told, off record, that certain materials remained under review by foreign cooperation protocols. A phrase that, in intelligence language, means stay quiet. But history has a way of speaking through the smallest cracks. In 2024, a former GRU officer defected to Finland, bringing with him microfilm from the 1950s labeled Red Echo, Thuringia Sector. Among the reels was footage showing Soviet soldiers dismantling machinery in the same underground chambers Dr. Weiss had explored. The soldiers wore full protective suits. Behind them, stenciled in white, the same words appeared again, Object 1288. The audio, though faint, captured a single phrase in Russian, too unstable to move. Bury it here. What they buried was not simply hardware. It was a legacy, a link in a chain that connected wartime Germany to early Soviet nuclear research. The implications were staggering. If the technology recovered in Thuringia had indeed influenced Soviet atomic progress, it meant that part of the Cold War's balance of power was built upon a Nazi foundation. Governments, East and West alike, had every reason to keep such a truth buried. In the villages surrounding the forest, life moved on, quietly. The older residents still remembered the convoys, the soldiers, the silence that followed. Farmers avoided the restricted zone, Children dared each other to approach the fence at night, listening for the low hum that still drifted through the trees after rain. A local pastor once described it in his journal as a sound that feels like breathing through stone. He died before anyone could ask. More taunt environmental inspectors occasionally appeared, always under different agency names, never staying long. Their instruments measured nothing unusual, yet their reports were classified. In 2025, a small fire broke out near the site's edge, burning for 3 days before containment crews arrived. Satellite imagery later showed scorched earth patterns in concentric rings, the same pattern engineers noted around the reactor bay decades earlier. No official cause was ever released. For those who had worked the excavation, the memories lingered in fragments. The metallic air, the quiet dread, the sensation of standing in a place where human ambition had crossed a line it could not uncross. One technician, interviewed anonymously, described the bunker as a time capsule of arrogance, a place where science forgot its soul. He paused before adding, "And the world still doesn't want to admit it." Historians debated whether Operation Ashfall represented a final act of desperation or a deliberate attempt to secure a future. Reich in another form, a scientific resurrection through data and design. But regardless of motive, its outcome was the same. Men tried to outpace history, and history caught them anyway. The forest healed slowly. Moss covered the concrete slabs. Birch trees grew where trucks once stood. Only the faint outline of the access road remained, visible from above as a thin scar running through the green. Visitors who stumbled upon it would see nothing extraordinary, just quiet woods, birdsong, a trickle of stream water. Yet beneath their feet, the remnants of the 20th century's darkest ambitions slept on, humming faintly beneath layers of soil and denial. By the time the European media caught wind of the story, most of the evidence had vanished again, confiscated, misplaced, or discredited. Officials denied all claims. A spokesman from the German Ministry of Defense dismissed the entire narrative as a conspiracy of misinterpreted ruins. But those who had been there knew better. They had seen the stencils. They had read the logs. They had felt the air grow heavy, as if the ground itself resented being disturbed. And so the site fell silent once more, locked away by those who fear the truth, and protected, perhaps mercifully, by time itself. Because some discoveries do not belong to the living, some stories are meant to stay in the dark. Chapter 5. Echoes that never fade. Decades pass, and the forest still stands, unchanged, serene, its silence deeper than memory. Yet beneath those trees, history breathes in whispers. Every generation rediscovers the same rumor. A sealed door, a hum beneath the ground, a truth the world refused to face. Operation Ashfall has become more than an event. It is a reflection of fear, of secrecy, and of the lengths nations will go to hide what they once dared to create. When modern historians revisit the war, they often look upward, to the skies of Normandy, to Berlin's ruined skyline, to the mushroom clouds that would follow years later. But the real story of power lies underground, in places like Thuringia, in the quiet pursuit of knowledge without conscience. It is there that ideology met innovation, and humanity learned how easily one can destroy the other. Today, archivists and investigators continue to chase the fragments, digitized microfilms, declassified Soviet logs, faded photographs labeled with coordinates that no longer appear on maps. Each discovery brings us closer to understanding what Operation Ashfall truly was, and farther from the comfort of believing it was just myth. For if the bunker in Thuringia was real, then so were the men who built it, and the systems that protected them long after the war ended. In universities and intelligence circles alike, there's a growing recognition that the line between wartime, science and Cold War progress was thinner than history books suggest. The jet engines, the rockets, even the nuclear theories, all were born in that crucible of desperation. And when the flags changed, the research simply changed hands. One ideology replaced another, but the ambition remained. To dominate, to control, to reach further, no matter the cost. The men of Operation Ashfall never faced trial. Most of their names were absorbed into post-war institutions, hidden beneath academic titles and false records. Some emigrated, others died quietly, their work cited in the footnotes of modern patents. The moral reckoning that should have followed never came. Perhaps that's the truest legacy of the bunker, not what it contained, but what it revealed about us, our ability to look away when truth becomes inconvenient. In 2025, a final expedition was proposed, a joint effort between German and international researchers to reopen Object 12-88E under controlled conditions. It was denied within days. Official reasoning: environmental concerns, safety risks. Unofficially, several member states feared what another excavation might uncover. Not just artifacts, but records, proof of collaboration, of knowledge exchanged in secret during the earliest days of the Cold War. History, once again, was easier to bury than confront. And so the story remains unfinished. The hatch stays sealed. The reports remain redacted. The soil above grows thick with roots that twist through rusted cables and fractured steel. But the questions linger, unburied. Who returned to the site in 1947? Why was it reclassified under Soviet command? And what exactly did they build in those final weeks of the war? Perhaps the answer no longer matters. Perhaps the truth, like radiation, decays with time. Its half-life stretching across generations until it becomes invisible, but never gone. What endures is the lesson that secrecy breeds repetition, that every buried secret plants the seed of another. For every door sealed in the name of safety, there will always be someone who wants to open it. Every silence eventually draws a voice willing to break it. In the end, the story of Operation Ashfall is not about what the Germans built or what the Soviets found. It is about what we, as a species, continue to hide from ourselves, the allure of forbidden knowledge and the belief that control equals safety. History tells us otherwise. And so, beneath the Thuringian forest, the earth still holds its breath, waiting, watching, keeping the last whisper of an age that refused to die. Because even now, 80 years later, some echoes never fade.